I met her on a Wednesday. Not a remarkable day, just one of those afternoons where the city felt slightly too quiet, like it was holding its breath between hours. I'd come into the laundromat after work, same as always, jeans and t-shirts smelling faintly of the cafe where I pulled shifts. She was already there, sitting on one of the plastic chairs by the window, reading a paperback with her glasses slipping down her nose. I noticed her shoes first. Not new, but clean. Polished even. The kind of shoes someone wears out of habit, not fashion. She looked up when I walked in, a small, polite glance that lasted a second too long. "Hey," I said, half because I didn't know what else to do with the moment. "Hey," she echoed soft. Then her eyes dropped back to the book, but not before that faint, polite smile. I sat across from her, dumped my laundry into the machine. Socks, uniforms, nothing interesting. Still, I could feel her there, like a warm lamp left on in another room. The hum of the washers filled the silence. A TV on the corner wall muttered something about lottery numbers. Nobody was really watching. "You come here often?" I asked, realizing how dumb it sounded as soon as I said it. She laughed, a low, dry sound. "That's a terrible line." "Yeah," I said. "I'm aware." Her name was Laura. I learned that maybe 15 minutes later, when my machine jammed and she helped me pull the door open with a firm, practiced grip. Her hand brushed mine, quick and unintentional, but enough to short-circuit something in my chest. "You should complain to the owner," she said. "He never fixes these properly." "You know him?" "I am him," she said, straightening her glasses. "Well, kind of. My husband owns it. I just keep the place running." I laughed under my breath, embarrassed for reasons I couldn't name. She looked at me then, steady, as if she understood more than she should have. For the next few weeks, I timed my laundry wrong on purpose, always landing in her orbit somehow. Sometimes she'd offer coffee from a thermos. Sometimes she'd just nod, immersed in her book. But every time, it felt like something steady in my otherwise uncertain days. She started remembering small things: how I took my coffee, no sugar, extra milk, the name of my sister, the band I mentioned once in passing. And me, I started noticing things about her, the way she twisted her ring when she was thinking, how she looked at the machines as if waiting for them to break again. There was no grand conversation. Just moments. The kind that slip between minutes and stay anyway. Once, as she handed me my folded shirt, our fingers brushed again. This time neither of us moved away immediately. "Careful," she said quietly, eyes fixed on the fabric. "You'll make a habit of this place." "Maybe that's not such a bad thing." She didn't answer. But later, as I packed my bag, I saw her writing something on a small notepad. She tore the page out, folded it once, and slipped it into the pocket of my laundry bag. I found it when I got home. Just a short note. "Come by tomorrow. Early. Before the others." I must have read it 10 times before setting it down beside my phone. My thumb hovered over her number, unsaved, just digits on a screen, and for some reason, I didn't call. Outside, rain started against the window. Inside, the machines of my life kept turning. I didn't know it yet, but that was the last ordinary night I'd ever have. I went back the next morning, early like her note said. The air still smelled faintly of detergent and rain from the night before. She was already there, wiping the counters, hair tied back loosely. The radio played something old and soft. "You came," she said without looking up. "You told me to." She smiled at that, small, tired, but real. "Most people don't listen." I shrugged, setting down my laundry bag. "Guess I'm not most people." For a while, we didn't talk. She poured tea from her thermos, slid a cup toward me. The steam curled between us like something alive. "My husband used to do the morning shift," she said suddenly. "Before he left. Before this all became mine." Her voice didn't break, but there was a tiny tremor when she set the cup down. She didn't look at me, just watched the liquid settle. "I'm sorry," I said, though I wasn't sure for what exactly. The leaving, the silence, the way the word husband felt heavier than it should. She waved it off gently. Don't be. It's been years. You just get used to talking to empty rooms. The sentence stayed in the air longer than it should have. I wanted to ask more, but something in her eyes warned me not to. Instead, I folded one of the damp towels she'd left on the counter. She watched, amused. You don't strike me as the domestic type. I do what needs doing, I said. Besides, you looked like you could use the help. Her laugh was quiet, almost surprised, like she hadn't expected to still have that sound in her. We kept working side by side. The hum of the dryers filled the silence. She brushed against me once while reaching for a basket, muttered an apology that felt unnecessary. After a while, she said, You're what, 23? 24 next month. She nodded, more to herself than to me. My son would have been your age. I stopped mid-fold. Would have? Car accident, she said simply. No tears, no explanation. Just fact. I didn't know what to say, so I didn't. I just kept folding. My hands were shaking a little, but I don't think she noticed. When she finally spoke again, her tone was lighter. You don't talk much, do you? I do. Just, not when it matters. She smiled faintly, that almost smile again. That's the good kind of quiet. We sat after that, cups of tea cooling between us. She asked about my job, my plans, questions that felt ordinary but landed heavy. I told her I didn't really know what I was doing with my life. Most people don't, she said. They just pretend better. Her gaze lingered for a moment too long before she turned back to the window. Outside, the city was waking up, pale light spreading across the wet street. When I stood to leave, she reached for my sleeve, just 2 fingers, a small gesture, almost nothing. Same time next week? I nodded. And for some reason, that small touch stayed with me longer than her words ever did. I don't know why that moment stayed with me, maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. The week after that, she wasn't there. The laundromat was open, lights humming, radio playing, but the chair by the window was empty. Her book was gone. So was the thermos. I sat anyway. Watched my clothes turn slowly behind glass. Told myself it didn't matter. That it shouldn't. But every sound felt too loud without her, the machine clunking, coins rattling, someone outside laughing. She came back the next day. Same seat. Different energy. Did you miss me? She asked, teasing, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. I did, I said before I could stop myself. Her hand stilled over the pile of folded shirts. She didn't look up. Don't say things like that. I didn't mean yes, you did. The words were soft, almost kind. That somehow made it worse. We worked in silence for a while. The air felt thicker. She kept tucking stray hairs behind her ear, even when there weren't any. I caught myself watching the motion, the quiet repetition of it. I had to visit my daughter, she said suddenly. She's moving in with her fiancé. Oh. She thinks I'm lonely. A short laugh. Maybe I am. There was a long pause. Too long. You are, I said quietly. She glanced at me then, a sharp, assessing look that almost made me wish I hadn't said it. Don't, she murmured. Don't try to fix things you don't understand. But her voice faltered on the last word. Before I could respond, the door jingled. A man stepped in, maybe early 50s, suit slightly rumpled, smile too familiar. He waved at her. Laura! Didn't expect to find you here so early. Her shoulders straightened instantly. Morning, Tom. He nodded at me, then looked between us, a faint flicker of curiosity passing through his eyes. New helper? No, she said quickly. Just a customer. Something in the way she said it made my stomach drop. Tom left a few minutes later, but the room didn't feel the same. She kept her eyes on her work, movements brisk, efficient. When our hands brushed reaching for the same basket, she pulled away like it burned. I should close up early today, she said after a while. Got things to handle. I nodded, unsure if she meant for me to go. Probably did. But as I reached the door, she spoke again, quiet, like she wasn't sure she wanted me to hear. You shouldn't come here so often. People talk. I turned. You care what they say? She hesitated, eyes flicking from the window to my face, then back again. I care about what I might start believing. Her voice trembled just enough to make my chest tighten. I stepped closer, just a little. The air between us felt charged, unsteady. Her breath caught. She didn't move away this time. For a heartbeat, we stood like that, too close, too aware. Then she stepped back, just barely, her hand brushing against my arm as she passed. Go home, she whispered. Before this turns into something it shouldn't. Her fingers lingered a moment too long. And when I walked out into the pale light, I realized I could still feel her touch, like a line drawn in the air, waiting to be crossed. It rained again that week. The kind that drizzles without stopping, thin, cold, endless. I found her outside the laundromat after closing. She sat on the curb, coat wrapped around her knees, thermos beside her. The neon sign above flickered in and out, painting her face in tired colors. You'll get sick, I said, stepping under the awning. She didn't look up. Maybe that's fine. I sat beside her anyway. For a while, we just listened, the rain, the faint hum of a vending machine, our own breathing. You didn't come yesterday, she said finally. Didn't think I should. Why? You told me not to. She huffed out something halfway between a laugh and a sigh. And you listened this time. I didn't want to make things worse. She turned then, really looked at me. Her eyes were darker than usual, something restless moving behind them. You think this is worse? I didn't answer. My hands were damp from the rain. I didn't know where to put them. She took a slow sip from the thermos, then passed it to me. The tea was cold. Bitter. Still, I drank. I saw you talking to that girl at the cafe, she said suddenly. What girl? The one with the red scarf. Oh. She's just a co-worker. Her jaw tightened. Just. The word landed hard. I looked at her, really looked, and for the first time, she seemed uncertain. Not composed, not distant. Just there, raw and human, like a thread pulled too tight. You're jealous, I said softly. She let out a small laugh, the kind meant to disguise something else. Don't flatter yourself. But she couldn't meet my eyes. Rain streaked her glasses. She took them off, wiped them on her sleeve, hands trembling slightly. I shouldn't be here, she whispered. You shouldn't be here. I know. Then why do you keep coming back? Because I want to, I said before I could stop myself. Because it feels like something I shouldn't want, but do anyway. Her breath caught. I keep thinking about what would happen, I went on. If I said what I actually felt? She shook her head, a slow, pained motion. Don't. But you already know. The silence after that stretched thin. The rain grew softer, like it was listening. She reached out then, just brushed the back of her hand against mine. Barely a touch. Barely anything. But I felt it everywhere. Do you ever wish you'd met someone at a different time? She asked, voice barely there. All the time, I said. Her eyes flicked to my lips, then away. The muscles in her jaw tightened, like she was holding something in. For a moment, I thought she'd lean closer. That something would finally break. But instead she stood. Pulled her coat tighter. You should go, she said quietly. I looked up at her, rain catching in her hair, her eyes unreadable. Will you be here tomorrow? I asked. She didn't answer. And maybe that silence was the answer. She wasn't there the next morning. Or the morning after that. At first, I told myself she was busy, errands, family, maybe a sick day. The laundromat was still open, lights humming, machines spinning, but the space felt hollow. Like the air had lost its shape. Her chair by the window stayed empty. Her book was gone. The thermos too. By the third day, I stopped pretending. I texted her, once. Just, you okay? No reply. I stared at the message so long the screen dimmed and reflected my own face back at me, waiting for something that probably wasn't coming. When she finally did return, it was late evening. I almost didn't recognize her. Hair tied neatly, lipstick, earrings. Not her usual quiet self, but someone slightly rehearsed. Didn't think I'd see you again, I said. She smiled, polite and distant. I've been away. Visiting family. Something in the way she said it, too even, too measured, told me it was a half-truth. She started sorting the clean laundry that wasn't hers. Folded each shirt like she needed something to do with her hands. How's your daughter? I asked. She's fine. Silence. Is everything okay? Everything's fine, she said again, this time sharper, like a lid snapping shut. I almost let it go. But she looked tired, the kind of tired that sits behind the eyes. Did something happen? I asked quietly. She didn't look at me when she said it. My husband called. The word husband felt strange in her mouth, like it didn't belong there anymore. He wants to come back, she continued. Said he made a mistake. Wants to fix things. I felt my throat tighten, but no words came. Just static in my chest. That's good, I said finally, though I didn't mean it. She looked at me then, really looked, and for the first time, I saw fear there. Don't say that, she whispered. Please don't make it sound like it's good. The room went quiet again. Only the low spin of a dryer. I wanted to ask what she'd say to him. What we were now. But the question felt too big for the space we were in. Instead, I nodded slowly, pretending to understand. She turned away, wiping invisible lint from her sleeve. You shouldn't come by for a while, she said. Just until things settle. I wanted to argue. To tell her what that would feel like. But I didn't. I just stood there, holding the empty laundry bag she'd once slipped a note into. That night I drafted a message, 10 different versions of I miss you, none of them right. In the end, I deleted all of them. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused. Like life forgot to finish the sentence. The next morning, I walked past the laundromat but didn't go in. Her chair was still there. Empty. It was almost 2 weeks before I saw her again. A quiet Sunday. The sky was a dull gray, the kind that doesn't move. I wasn't planning to stop by. I just found myself walking in that direction, hands shoved into my pockets, steps slowing as I passed the laundromat. She was outside, locking up early. A grocery bag in one hand, car keys in the other. When she saw me, she froze, not startled, just suspended. You look different, I said. She smiled faintly. You always say that when you don't know what else to say. She was right. I didn't. We stood there for a moment, both pretending to look at the rain puddling near the curb. She gestured toward the cafe across the street. We could sit. For a minute. I followed her in. The place was half empty, smelling of coffee grounds and lemon cleaner. We took a booth by the window, same distance apart as always, but it felt smaller now. You stopped coming, she said, not accusing, just observing. You told me to. Her hands fidgeted with a sugar packet, folding it, then unfolding it. I didn't think you'd listen. I almost didn't. That made her smile, just barely, but it softened something between us. My husband's back, she said after a while. He's trying, I think. Or pretending to. I can't tell the difference anymore. I nodded. Do you want him to stay? She didn't answer right away. The question hung there, heavy but honest. Finally she said, I don't know what I want. But I know what I shouldn't. Her eyes lifted to mine. For the first time, she didn't look away. I kept thinking about you, she said. About how easy it was to talk to you. How quiet it felt, in a good way. That scared me. I swallowed hard. Why? Because I didn't expect to feel anything again. Not like that. Not with someone who still has everything ahead of him. Her voice broke slightly, like the truth was scraping its way out. I reached across the table, hesitated, then let my hand rest on hers. She didn't pull away this time. We sat like that for a long moment, no grand confessions, no promises. Just the weight of something real between us. "I'm not asking for anything," I said finally. "I just needed you to know." She looked down at our hands, thumb brushing against my skin, once, lightly. "You always were too kind," she whispered. "That's not what this is." "Then what is it?" I wanted to answer, but words felt too small. So I didn't. I just squeezed her hand gently, enough to say what couldn't be said. She smiled, tired but sincere. "Okay," she breathed. It wasn't a goodbye. Not really. But it felt like both of us finally stopped pretending we didn't understand. Outside, the rain had started again. Neither of us moved. And in that small, ordinary silence, something inside me settled, not happy, not sad. Just real. It's been 9 months. The laundromat still hums on the corner of Maple Street, same neon sign flickering at the edges. I still pass it most mornings on my way to work, the same cafe, the same burnt coffee smell that follows me home. But the hours have changed. She opens later now. Sleeps in more, she once told me. Sometimes I see her through the window, adjusting the opened sign, her hair tied back, eyes calm. No lipstick. No mask. Just herself. We never really ended. We just slowed down. After that day at the cafe, things shifted. Not suddenly, just enough. We stopped pretending the world didn't exist outside our quiet. We gave it a name, time. She took hers. I gave mine. Somehow, they began to fit. Now, I help her close up some nights. We don't talk about it. It just happens, the same way habits do. She still brings tea in the old thermos. I still drink it, even when it's gone cold. She teases me for that. "You could at least pretend to like coffee," she says. "I did," I tell her. "Didn't take." Every evening, around 8:47, she turns off the front lights, and for a minute, the place glows only from the dryers. She leans against the counter, arms folded, eyes on the quiet spin of someone's forgotten load. That's our stillness. Our language. She told me once she called her husband after he left again. Told him not to come back. Told him she'd stopped being angry, not because she forgave him, but because she'd outgrown the version of herself who waited. I didn't say anything then. Just handed her the next basket. That's how we are, less talk, more knowing. Now, when I fold shirts beside her, the air feels steady. Familiar. Not tense, not desperate. Just two people who survived their own loneliness, and didn't run from what they found. Last week, we sat outside after closing. The rain had started, that same soft drizzle that used to haunt our pauses. She handed me her thermos, half empty, and said, "You know, you never told me what you'd do if you actually won the lottery." I smiled. "Buy a new washing machine. Maybe one that doesn't jam every third load." She laughed, the kind of laugh that lands in your chest and stays there. Then she looked at me, and for a moment, it was all there again, the first glance, the cold tea, the folded shirts. Every silence that built this small, quiet life. We didn't need to say anything. Sometimes love doesn't announce itself. It just lingers, in the things that keep running, the hands that keep folding, the hearts that finally stop rushing. I still don't know if I believe in happy endings. But I believe in this, in her, in the way 8:47 feels softer now, like a second chance that doesn't need a name. Some people leave. Some people stay. She stayed. That's enough. Did this story stay with you? What kind of quiet, real love stories do you want to hear next? Tell me below, your heart might be the next story I write.